Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Tominator. So I'm pretty late to the party with this one. The Chicago Pro took place over a week ago, but unfortunately it took them a couple of days to put the comparison pics up, and I was just swamped with work last week and couldn't get around to it. But you know what they say, better late than never. So let's go ahead and check it out, and we'll do our usual pose-by-pose analysis. Alright, so Akim Williams was your winner, narrowly beating out second place Justin Rodriguez. And honestly, I feel for both of these guys, man. They've both been kind of shafted in the past. Akim, over the past 2 years or so, had multiple opportunities to close the deal and often fell short. So it was nice to see him finally win, and I'm happy he'll be going to the Olympia. As for Justin, he's now been runner-up, 2 or 3 times in 2020? So that's gotta suck for him, especially considering he actually won the prejudging and was tied with Akim in terms of the scorecards. They each had 9 points apiece. I've literally never seen a tie like this before in first place, so that's pretty interesting. And speaking of interesting, you also had the much-hyped Nick Walker making his pro debut. And he ended up taking 4th after Maxx Charles, but we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. For now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this thing, the mandatory comparisons. So I decided to go with pictures this time because the video from Muscular Development, while it was HD, it was shot at such a bad angle. It was essentially unusable. It was totally unfair to like half the competitors on the far side. And the stream, of course, was total garbage. But even when it comes to these pics, we're starting on the side chest because this was when they started zooming in on the top 4. So just for the record, I don't like doing top 6 comparisons. It's just too many bodies to fit on the screen at the same time, and you start to lose detail. But anyway, from left to right, you've got Maxx Charles, Akim Williams, Justin Rodriguez, and Nick Walker. And in this shot, well, it's a tough call. Let's just get the easy stuff out of the way first. Max is last, okay? He lacks the size and thickness of the others from the side. And propping the chest up like that doesn't really do him any favors from this low angle. All it really does is make his torso look longer and the pecs look thinner. And this is something I don't think enough guys take into consideration, even at the pro level. It's like, look, just because Arnold hit it that way back in the day and looked amazing, as we all know, that doesn't mean it's going to translate well on stage today. Few guys have ever had the sort of jaw-dropping pec development Arnie did. And you have to remember that the judges are sitting down low and will be looking up at you. So lifting your chest to the ceiling is actually hiding it from the judges. As for the other 3, damn, it is close. Justin's probably the biggest and fullest, but also the softest looking. Akim's got the best lower body, I'd say, with all that detail in the outer thigh. Nick looks great and can certainly hang with them size-wise, and even conditioning-wise, but his chest is a little flatter. Overall, I'd give it to Akim. He's showing more definition than Justin, so that puts him slightly ahead. The back double goes to either Rodriguez or Walker. Personally, I'd go with Nick Walker because he's got a better lower body and more detail through the mid-back. Justin might be drier. It's hard to tell from these photos. Certainly his glutes are more striated, but Nick's hamstrings and lower lats are more defined. After that, I'd have Akim in third, then followed by Max. Akim's got the smallest waist, and his lower body is very good, but his back looks incomplete. Those lats insert fairly high, and while that does help accentuate the tiny waist, it doesn't help him at all from a muscularity standpoint. He also looks kind of soft upstairs, as he usually does with his thick skin. The only areas Akim ever seems to be razor sharp in are the quads from the front and from the side. Everywhere else, it always looks like he's holding a film. I still like him more than Charles here, though. Max did not bring his A game to this one. He didn't nail his conditioning like he did back at the Arnold or some of these other recent contests, and it shows through the softness in those glutes and hams. The rear lat spread goes to Justin hands down. He's the widest and has the most defined traps to boot, and once again, looks to be the driest downstairs. Nick doesn't crush this one like he did the back double. I actually might even bump Akim ahead of him here because he looks more polished, especially through the trap area, and his taper is certainly more exaggerated. Now, it might just be a bad shot for Nick, but I even like Maxx more through the back here. But I'd still probably have Maxx in last just because of the subpar lower body conditioning. The glutes are too soft, and you can even see wrinkles there in the lower back. Those are telltale signs that he didn't nail it. Okay, but enough picking on poor Maxx, because the side tricep is actually a really great shot for him. He's arguably winning it here with those washboard abs, easily the best midsection on display. Akim looks great through the lower body, but I'm not crazy about the upper body. He looks kind of scrunched up and that tricep horseshoe is washed out, so I'm not crazy about his execution on this one. His posture just looks kind of off. Rodriguez again looks way too smooth from the side, and the stomach appears visibly bloated. Other than raw size and the fullness of those quads and hamstrings, I'm not too impressed. Nick Walker is actually fighting for the win here because he's got the size, he's got the thickness, and the detail to hang with anybody here. Not to mention the triceps themselves are the best in the picture. But like Akim, there's just something about his posture that looks kind of awkward to me. It could just be a bad camera angle or something, but it's spoiling what could otherwise be a knockout punch. I mean, just look how uncomfortable he seems compared to Maxx, who's holding it effortlessly. So I don't know about this one. I'd probably need another look, but for now, I'd say it's either Charles or Walker, depending on how much weight you put into posing. Speaking of which, Nick's definitely got some room to improve there. His front lat spread was frankly terrible because he placed his hands way too high up and it just looked weird. So yeah, chalk it up to rookie mistakes, I guess. In the ab and thigh, we've got some synchronized posing going on, it seems, with the guys on the outside hitting it conventionally, and these two in the middle doing this modified half-most muscular thing, which I don't really get why that's allowed, but whatever. As long as the abs are visible, I guess. So I think you gotta go with Akim here. Those feathered quads look incredible, and as we've already seen, he's got the slimmest midsection in this call-out line. Justin and Nick are really thick through the middle, and Maxx has weak quad development, so even though he's got the best abs by far, Maxx cannot win the ab and thigh. I think on second glance, there's even an argument to be made for Nick Walker winning it, since he's got such a massive, grainy physique, and the abs are very separated. I guess it boils down to how much tolerance you have for a wide, blocky waistline, although here it looks pretty decent. At least it's not spilling over like Justin's through the obliques. The most muscular, though, is a great finisher for Maxx. I really love his crab. Everything just seems to come alive on him when he hits this one. I think he is overstepping the line, though, because he suddenly looks way bigger compared to previous poses. Walker's hands clasp looks really solid. I'd give him the nod over Akim simply because he's so much wider. The size difference is significant. Not crazy about Justin here. I don't think he has the aesthetics necessary to pull off something like this. It's not really working for him. But anyway, guys, that's it for the top 4. Now, I've also got some top 2 comparisons to show you, but before we get into that, let's briefly review the scorecard here and talk about these placings. Did Akim deserve it? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not totally sold, and can certainly see the criticisms against him. He was pretty well conditioned for Akim, but Justin and possibly others were drier. He didn't really run away with any poses either. But at the same time, there is an argument to make that he was the most well-rounded. He was the only mass monster with good conditioning and a small waistline. So that's a hard balance to strike and deserves to be rewarded in a sense, right? Now, Justin might have stomped him from the back, and he did, but he looked surprisingly soft from the side and was often showing signs of stomach distension. That, coupled with relatively weak legs, which makes him appear top-heavy in many poses, is probably enough to hold him back. But my biggest problem was actually Maxx in third. I don't think he deserved it. Not this time. He didn't bring his usual super peeled conditioning that we've come to expect, and I think his placing here was purely political and mainly a result of paying his dues with the judges, so to speak. I would have actually had Nick Walker in the top 3 instead. Why? Okay, for one, he was bigger. For another, he was more conditioned this time than Maxx was, and he had a much better back and lower body. Sure, he's not perfect, he's got some structural flaws, and that big midsection is concerning for someone who's still so young. But from a pro bodybuilding perspective, there's no doubt in my mind he deserved to beat Maxx Charles at this show. Anyway, it's not a big deal, but that's just my take on it. On to the top 2. So, right off the bat, I wanted to point out the absurdity of Justin's shoulders here in this front relaxed. From the low camera angle, they look more than a little suspect. I would be shocked if he wasn't using some sort of sight enhancement oil, because this looks almost as bad as some of those synthol freaks you see. Delts should be capped, yes, but they shouldn't jut up like mountains in a front relax pose. Alright, in the front double biceps, this one could go either way. I really like Justin's posing choice here. Hitting it tilted, a la Victor Martinez, it really flatters his physique and minimizes his flaws. You barely notice the undersized legs because the upper body just grabs your attention so strongly. Akim is admittedly more balanced. He's certainly better from the waist down, but I'd like to see more sharpness through the upper body, particularly in the abs and serratus areas. On the whole, I'm giving it to Justin. And that's surprising because in social media pics, there are few men alive who have more wow factor than Akim Williams in the front double bi. But, as is often the case, that doesn't necessarily translate to the stage. The front lat spread, I begrudgingly give to Akim. I honestly don't like either of them. Justin's stomach looks faded and bloated, and again, those delts look pretty fishy to me. Akim is narrow and his pecs don't sit well in this pose. They look very rounded, almost breast-like, and it's not a flattering image. The side chest is a big improvement for both of them, and again, I think Akim takes the cake. He's basically matching Justin size for size, but has a lot more detail downstairs, and we've already seen them in all these poses, so I'm going to breeze through it pretty quickly now. The back double is Justin all day. Akim cannot match that width or crispness through the back and glutes. Justin's even kicking his butt through the shoulders and arms. Back lat spread also goes to Rodriguez. Bigger, wider, more conditioned. The only thing I like more on Akim right now is his hamstrings and outer quad sweep. Side triceps goes to Akim. Justin is bloated, and so, without any world-class features to counteract that, he practically loses by default. Akim also takes the ab and thigh. Even though his abs aren't as sharp, his waist is more streamlined, and his quads are simply on another level. Most muscular. Now, this is a great pick. It's close, but I'm leaning towards Akim for the roundness factor, and the cross-striated quads are the icing on the cake. Justin's proportions between the shoulders and triceps look off to me, and his legs once again let him down from the front. So even though he's wider, width has never been a main selling point in the crab most muscular. Some of the best crab shots in history belong to guys like Phil Heath and Flex Wheeler, both of whom were notoriously narrow, but still managed to clean up in that shot. So yeah guys, that's it for the comparisons. I can definitely see why the judges were having a real tough time deciding this one, because it was super close. Ultimately, I'm happy they went with Akim, because I feel like he does have fewer flaws and the more pleasing physique. But what do you guys think? Do you think Akim Williams deserved it, or should it have gone Justin's way? And what's your take on Nick Walker finishing 4th? You've already heard my 2 cents, but let me know yours in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more if you enjoyed. As always, it's the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.